When I was little, and I mean like 4 to 6 years old, I remember going to our local pizza place and playing arcade games while we wait for our food. This was the 80s, so arcades were pretty big then. One game that particularly gripped my attention was Joust, partly because it was a game that I had at home on our Atari, but mostly because it was a little different than the other games. It was one of those original arcade-style games. The graphics were a little simpler, the gameplay was easy, but most of all, it just worked well in arcade-sized bites. This is exactly how I felt about Spirit HD. Now before I dilute my experience with this game to a ball in a cup, I should come straight out and say that I really enjoyed Spirit HD. Everything about it just feels solid and polished, if that isn't too redundant. It also has a heavy arcade-like experience. A single play will last somewhere between 2 and 7 minutes from the moment you press the start button until the timely event of your re-death. Well, unless you're a badass, of course. In Spirit, you play as a little agile ghost, which you move by tracing your finger around the screen as it follows. This leaves a trail behind you as you move. By circling quickly around and touching the end of that trail, a vortex is created, sucking everything it comes into contact with deep into the abyss, aside from the ghost. There are various enemies that pop up in the screen which chase or shoot the ghost while it dodges and attacks the vortexes. Simple enough, right? Well, it is for the first couple levels. Like many other arcade games, your accomplishments in Spirit are gauged by your score. You get a handful of points for each enemy you banish into the oblivion of emptiness, but the points awarded are exponentially higher if you can capture multiple enemies with a single vortex. The bigger your vortex, the more risk you take. To create massive vortexes, you have to be very quick and run a high risk of running into enemies, quickly ending your afterlife. However, if you're able to create a super vortex, the points payoff will be generous. Spirit has 3 play modes to choose from. Classic and Extreme are very similar, giving you the standard vortex creation approach to capturing enemies, which I've already explained. Extreme is simply a more difficult mode of classic play. Pulse, which is a mode that's been added on since Spirit first launched, gives a slightly different approach. In Pulse, you are put into a survival arena mode, where enemies get faster and more numerous as you progress. Also, rather than quickly circling to create vortexes, small pulses appear randomly, and when touched they expand into a vortex. The size of the vortex created depends on when the pulse circle is struck. As an added scoring factor, each enemy captured leaves behind a golden ring that when collected adds a score multiplier. Pulse mode's a pretty welcome addition and feels more like an entirely separate game rather than an add-on. Overall, Spirit is a solid arcade-style game that's great for anyone looking for some bite-sized arcade-style entertainment. Spirit can be found on the Android Marketplace for 99 cents. Pixelfreak.com is giving Spirit HD 87 pixels out of 100.